Hey guys, this video will go over how to write a linear equation from a graph. So this very first slide just goes over what is a linear equation. And for this, it's just a equation that will describe a straight line on a graph. So you will see that it's always of the format y equals mx plus b. We have already learned how to find the slope, which is m, and the y-intercept, which is b. So all we have to do is find those two things and then plug it into this equation. So first, for our first example here, step one says, what is the slope? So just remember, slope equals rise over run. So if I want to find my slope here, I'm going to pick 2 points. I'm going to go ahead and just pick the top 2 points, and I'm going to draw that triangle going along the grid lines. So going straight up and then straight over. And I can see that my rise, which is how much it goes up and down, is 2 units. And the run, which is how much it goes sideways, is 1 unit. All right, so my slope is going to equal 2 divided by 1, which is just equal to 2. So that's just simplifying that fraction. Notice also that this line is going uphill, right? Starting on the left-hand side, it is going up the page. So I know that this is going to stay positive. My second step is finding my y-intercept. So that is going to be b. For the y-intercept, I just want to say, where does my line cross the y-axis? So here's my y-axis, this vertical line on my graph, and I see that right here, it's crossing at -3. So my b is -3. Once you have these two things, we can put it into the equation. So your equation will always start y equals, we're going to put the slope right in front of the x. So we're going to have 2x. And then you will see at the back of the equation is going to be your y-intercept. In this case, because it's a negative, we're going to do -3. So our final equation for this line is right here. It's y equals 2x minus 3. Our next example here, we're going to do the same thing. We need to find our slope to start us off. So slope equals rise over run. The first thing I notice is this line is going downhill. So notice that this is going down the page. So I know I'm going to have to make it negative. So I'm going to put a negative in front of my slope before I find that answer. I'm going to pick my 2 points. I'll do the bottom ones this time. And I'm going to go ahead and draw that triangle. Remember, it doesn't matter if the triangle is on the right-hand side or the left-hand side of the line. I see that my rise is 3 units. It went up 3 boxes. And my run is 2 units. It went sideways 2. So my final answer for my slope is -3/2. Remember, we're going to keep it as a fraction. We are not going to put it into a decimal. All right, my second step is to find my y-intercept. So remember your y-intercept, that's b, is going to be, where does your line cross the y-axis? So here's my y-axis, that vertical line on my graph, and I see that it's crossing right here. I'm going to draw that circle around it at +1. So that's going to be b. Once I have those two things, remember, you're just going to plug those numbers in for m and b. So y equals -3/2x plus 1. Okay, so remember, don't forget that x there. A lot of people seem to leave that out. It's always going to be y equals whatever you got for slope times x, and then your y-intercept at the back. So +1 at the end. All right, here's our next example. Our slope is going to equal rise over run. Hopefully at this point, it is becoming easier to figure out what your slope and your y-intercept are. Once again, this line is going downhill. Notice it's going down the page. So once again, I'm going to start by putting a negative there because I know it's going to be a negative slope because it's going downhill. Here are 2 points. Remember, you can use any 2 points. I like to use 2 points that are close together. That way I don't have to simplify my fraction. Okay, so my rise is 1, my run is 1. So my final answer here for slope is 1 divided by 1, which, if you do 1 divided by 1, that's also just equal to 1. So slope is -1. My y-intercept is going to be, where does it cross the y-axis? I'm looking at this vertical black line, and it's crossing right up here at +3. My answer will be y equals negative 1x plus 3. Another way you will often see this written is just y equals negative x plus 3. Often, if you have a 1 with that x, it's invisible. We don't write it down. So either of those answers is correct there. Our next problem here, another example, our slope is going to be the first thing we find. I'm going to draw that triangle. So I'm going to use these 2 points here. Going along the grid lines, my rise I see is 3 units. My run is 1 unit. This line is going uphill, so it's going to stay positive. So remember, slope is rise over run. So in this case, my slope is going to be equal to 3 over 1, which if you don't know how to simplify, just put that in your calculator. 3 divided by 1 is just 3. Next up is to find your y-intercept. So your y-intercept is where does your line cross the y-axis? And it's kind of hard to see because our triangle is already drawn here, but that red line is crossing right in the middle, right at 0. So our y-intercept is 0. So our answer is y equals 3x plus 0. This is another one where you can write it as well as just y equals 3x. Often, if there's just a plus 0 at the back, we just leave it off and it's just assumed that it's crossing at 0. All right, so you can write it either of those ways. And then we get to our second type of problem. In this problem, you are given the equation. So we see it up here, y equals 3x minus 1. And all you are having to do is figure out what is your slope, what is your y-intercept. So just remember, I'll write it over here in the box, y equals mx plus b. Your slope is always the number in front of x, and the y-intercept is always the number that's by itself there. So in this case, our slope is going to equal 3, and our y-intercept is going to equal negative 1. So remember, the sign that's in front of it has to go with the y-intercept. Our next example here, we see that our slope is going to equal 1/2. That is the number that is in front of your x. And your y-intercept is going to equal negative 5. That's the number that's back by itself. All right, next example, our slope m is going to equal negative 4. Once again, that negative 4 is in front of your x. And our b, notice that our b, there is nothing there. So remember, this is the one that I said can be written a little bit differently. If there's nothing there, you can just imagine this crossing right through the middle of your graph at 0. So this equation could have also been written as y equals negative 4x plus 0. It's just that plus 0 at the back is usually just invisible. We don't always write that down. And then finally, this last one, same thing. This is the one that has that invisible number. Our slope, if there's nothing in front of your x, it's just a 1. So what I like to think about is how many x's do I see in that equation? I only see one x. Or if there's no number in front of it, I'm just going to assume it's just that one single x. And then b, our y-intercept, is going to be the number that's by itself there, which I see as negative 5. So with these type of problems, all you're really doing is, can you tell which number is your slope and which number is your y-intercept?